we play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for joining us. Really looking forward to having you with me for this next hour of geeky goodness. Sorry, my microphone went a little crazy there. It's trying to swing around on me. We're going to have Dr. Travis Langley on the show today, the Superherologist. Really looking forward to that. This guy is cool, and I'll introduce him further later. First of all, don't forget, this is live Geek Talk Radio. It's talk radio just like we're doing sports or politics or religious talk radio or whatever other stuff, but it's Geek Talk Radio. So feel free to call in at 501-823-0965, or you can tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. I'm hearing that our guest is on the line. I'll introduce him in uno momento. Let me do some housekeeping notes. But yeah, you can tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. And you can also, the show notes for today's show are up right now at shaneplays.com. That's ShanePlays. And you can find links for the news topics. You can find information on my guest and the books he's written and the stuff he's done. So, you know, if you're like, hey, what were they talking about? I want to know more. Go to shaneplays.com. And there's the show notes up there right now. Also, don't forget, this is live talk radio. We're going out over the air right now, like any other talk radio show, but it also goes out as a podcast. So it's a win-win. It's both and, not either or. And that podcast will go out on the blog, shaneplays.com, within a couple of days after the live show. We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, and we're also on Google Play Music. And I also put the show up on YouTube, and a lot of people listen to the show on YouTube. So make sure to follow the Shane Plays YouTube channel, which is on, that's linked on the show note, but you can go to youtube.com/GoShanePlays. And last, we're carried a week delayed. So this show will play next Saturday on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is sci-fi for your Wi-Fi, kryptonradio.com. So a couple other quick notes and we'll get to the guest. Your last chance, this is the last chance, I'm about to pick the winner to win a Castles and Crusades Player's Handbook, role-playing game Player's Handbook from Shane Plays show sponsor Troll Lord Games. Is now. You got go to the show notes. It's linked there, or go to the Shane Plays Facebook page. There's a post there that you have to like and share. That's all you got to do. You don't even have to like the page, but I'd love it if you did. But all you got to do is like and share the page to be entered for a chance to win. This is your last chance. It's about to happen. And I'm about to pick the winner. And then we're going to have role-playing games for the first time ever, organized role-playing games at the River City Comic Expo, June 11th and 12th here in Little Rock. First time ever. Shane Plays is working with Game Goblins, show sponsor Game Goblins, to make that happen. So look for RPG games at River City Comic Expo on Facebook, and I'll also put that link on the show notes. So go check that out. You can buy a ticket from Game Goblins to get into the River City Comic Expo at normal price, but that gives you a free role-playing game session. So, okay, having gotten all that out of the way, I'm really excited to have this guest on. I've been talking with him by Twitter off and on, and I know he's super mega busy reading his Twitter feed, so I feel honored to have him on with us. Dr. Travis Langley, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, you probably saw the tweet where I've been turning down a lot of interview requests. Yeah,
I saw that tweet, and then I saw another guy reach out, and you're like, man, I'd love to, but I'm really busy. So thanks so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good time while you're on with us. Now, do you prefer Dr. Langley? Do you prefer the Superherologist? Do you prefer the Travanator?
Superherologist. It'd be kind of conversation saying that over.
Yeah. So
it's Travis or Dr. Langley, whatever whatever you want.
Okay. All right. I'll roll with Travis. So
yeah, that's usually what interviewers do. There will be a few who will be Dr. Langley throughout, and suddenly it's a more formal kind of conversation.
Yeah, I've got to put on my tweed jacket if I start doing that. So. Well, listen, thanks so much. I'll read, we're going to do a quick news segment, and I would love to have your input on these news items. And then when we get into the main segment with you, I'll read your bio, which is, I just got to tell you, whatever vitamins you're taking, I want some, because you're out there, man, doing a lot of stuff. So, all right. Hey, GL, that's our producer. Hit us up. Let's turn on the microphone in the newsroom and see if they're working today. Are they working? We don't know. Wait a minute. Is the microphone broke? There we go. Live radio, ladies and gentlemen. Live radio. Okay, so that's the news team working hard. They work on Saturdays, and every $1 of Patreon support that we get for the show, they get a penny an hour raise. Is that not generous, Travis? A penny an hour.
A raise?
Yeah, they get a penny an hour raise for every $1 of Patreon support the show gets. I mean, that's generous. Wow. A whole penny. Come on. They work on Saturdays. They got to give them a penny an hour raised every time. So here's the news items. I'll try to go through them quick. And I picked out some news items that I thought might be interesting for you to comment on, Travis. So speaking of psychology, because you are the superhero psychologist, you go into the psychology of pop culture, Star Trek and superheroes and Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead and all that. DC Comics, and I know you're a big comic book guy, DC Comics just changed its logo. Did you see this?
Yes.
Yeah. So seeing as how, logos have a psychology behind them, what do you personally think of that move in the new logo?
Yeah, it's very old school in design. It looks like it could have fit on the comics about 40 years ago.
Right.
I know people are speculating on why. It does come across as possibly trying to, get in touch with their roots, or possibly trying to tell readers, hey, all that stuff that's made you mad lately because we seem to be ignoring our own history? Look, this is history.
Right. I think it's a little bit of all of the above, because, Jeff Johns has basically come out and said we're trying to get back to basically back to what makes these characters great and what makes DC Comics great. So it looks
Jeff Johns has always been for the history. He's revered the history and getting back to the history repeatedly, while others there, like somebody with initials DD and so forth, end up going, oh no, let's forget the history. Let's go with new for our legacy. That pooey legacy.
Right. I'm with you. I think that I had about a month ago, we had a panel where we were talking about superhero movies and different things. And I made the point, I think I'd like DD to go. I mean, he might be a nice guy to go out to lunch with, but I don't enjoy, I don't enjoy what's been coming out of DC the past few years. So,
I had a nice conversation with him once.
Yeah.
But, in terms of what it's like working there, I know from some writers that when they went to the New 52, and that's been 3-4 years, when they went to the New 52, some were just write it out, wait for a change in regime, and that has not happened.
It hasn't. So, well, there's starting to be some shakeups. We've got another news item later talking about the shakeups in the executives for the movies. So, but this, they're obviously from a I guess a psychological perspective trying to present a different feel. And it does, it does have an old school link or look to it, and people can go to the show notes, shaneplays.com. And the article I linked from The Verge, I linked that one specifically because it also shows the previous logos. And my personal favorite logo was from like 70 something to 90 something, the bullet. I loved the bullet, the DC bullet. I despise with the white hot passion of 1,000 Suns, the sticker peel logo that they've had for the past few years. So
yeah, it just looks like, let's put this together in design class.
Yeah, it just, I don't like it. But anyway, moving on, people, if you want to go see the new DC Comics logo, and Rebirth is coming out. The first Rebirth special is coming out next week. I think May 25th, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not confused. But I'm going to have a show here in 2 or 3 weeks on nothing but Rebirth, just going over Rebirth. So, Travis, I know you're super busy. If you just happen to want to participate in that, you'd be welcome to. But I'm really going to go into Rebirth and what they're doing. And it looks like they're trying to have a reboot without calling it a reboot. So, which bugs me to no end. But all right, now let's talk about something that DC's doing well in their TV shows. They're doing quite well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and and I made the point a couple of weeks ago talking, I don't want to see DC fail. I love DC. I love Marvel. I love them all. I don't want to see any of them fail. So I hope that they get it together. But I'm sure you saw this news item because I see you tweet quite a bit about keeping up with TV. But did you see that Supergirl, and now they've gone to the CW for budget reasons. CBS has moved them over or let them go, and they've gone to the CW. But there's going to be a crossover between Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow in December. Did you see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. From what little we know of where the story's going next year, Legends of Tomorrow is going to be doing something on a grander scale, which seems like it will cross time and universes, and the Flash has been repeatedly crossing universes.
Right.
So it does make sense. Although where Arrow fits in, well, because he's buddies with the Flash, maybe. But
yeah, that tends to be how it works out. They just happen to know each other. I've enjoyed the Flash and Arrow crossovers, I have to say. Arrow is the one out of them I don't watch, but I enjoy the Flash Arrow crossovers. So
I had watched Arrow for the first 5 weeks and got bored and stopped, and everybody told me it got better after that. But I really didn't start checking it out again with any frequency until Barry Allen first appeared on there, that first two-parter,
right,
in which he gets zapped at the end. I wanted to see how they introduced Barry, and I enjoyed that. So I've watched Arrow sporadically since then. I just have so much more fun with the Flash, even though this year I keep waiting to see what stupid thing the heroes are going to do next. I love the Flash.
Yeah, the Flash is, I think they've done a great job with it. There's been a couple of cringeworthy moments, but they hit some real high points with the Flash. And I think they've captured the essence of what makes the character fun and the comics fun. But they're not afraid to get, dramatic if they need to. Like I'm always about a week behind because I watch it online on either Hulu or the CW site. So I just saw the big deal with, and I'm not going to say what happened, but let's just say that Zoom does something crazy with somebody close to Barry. And so that's where I'm at there. And
Zoom did a bad thing.
He did a very bad thing, very bad, and which I didn't see coming. So, anyway, I don't want to go any further and accidentally, and I know it's already been out, so the spoiler is probably over and done with, but just in case somebody hasn't seen it yet, if you're not watching Flash, I think that's how superhero TV can be done well. And Legends of Tomorrow, I'm 3 or 4 episodes behind. I'm on the episode right now where they're rescuing their younger selves from the Pilgrim. Mm-hmm. So and then I saw you tweeted that you loved the last line of the most recent episode. So I'm curious to see what that was all about.
I really do. And you, as somebody who appreciates comic book history, will really enjoy the last line of the season finale.
Well, I felt, and I've talked to a lot of other people that seem to agree with this, the show started off kind of loosey-goosey or whatever, but it's really been pulling together over the season, in my opinion.
And the characters keep learning the same lesson over and over. Oh yeah, trust your people, don't deceive us. Trust your people, don't deceive us. But they have been pulling together lately, and of course, they put it together relatively quickly considering the history of these shows, but you consider where they have come from the beginning of Arrow, when you had a superhero show that was kind of embarrassed about being a superhero show.
Yeah.
I mean, even the name Starling City, it seems like such a minor detail, but why call it that? Because you're embarrassed about the stuff you're bringing from the comics?
Right.
And they were. Of course, originally it was a Batman series pitch that got rejected.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because the stuff I saw from the first season, I was like, this is Batman. They're setting him up to be, I didn't know that it was originally a Batman pitch.
That was the original pitch. It got rejected, so they revamped it into a Green Arrow show, which, they also weren't calling him anything for a while. And he's the Hood. Okay, he's the Arrow. And it really, as they started owning it a bit, let's bring in a few things, but when they had the Flash Arrow crossover, that made them real, the first crossover where he was the Flash, not just Barry.
Right.
That was when it really hit them. We can amp up the superhuman stuff on this show. We can go a whole lot bigger than we've been doing.
Right. Well, and I'm glad they did, because
they learned lessons from it.
Yeah.
It's hard to see how the movie Murderverse, as some call it, has left themselves room.
Murderverse.
Yeah.
GL, hold on a second. GL, have you heard the DC cinematic universe called the Murderverse yet? Have you heard that?
I have heard that.
Oh, okay. Anyway, wow. Well, that kind of leads us into a story we have here in a little bit. But first, before that, did you hear? I don't even know what to say. Did you? I know you've heard this stuff. Harley Quinn. There's a Harley Quinn movie in the works. And it's evidently Margot Robbie, or am I saying that right? She's going to be.
I think so.
Yeah, she's going to be. Oh, sorry, I talked over you. Go ahead.
No, I talked over you.
Oh, okay. We talked over each other in a moment of rare unity. Okay, so Harley Quinn. There's going to be a movie. Margot Robbie is like producing it, or has some sort of producing role with it. But she's also trying to bring in a lot of the women of the DC universe. So they're talking about the Birds of Prey, and some other female characters making it in. So I got to ask you, as a psychology professor who is combining your two loves, I mean, you could do a whole book on Harley Quinn, could you not? Just the whole psychology of Harley Quinn and why people love her?
Well, of course, the why people love her is a separate issue. That's getting into looking at the real-world fans. And we'll touch on that. I mean, the introduction to the Walking Dead psychology, both the foreword by John Russo, co-creator of Night of the Living Dead, and my introduction, they're both about why the zombies are popular. But then the rest of the book, we don't do that question so much because you go too far with it. You're analyzing the fans, and it's just guessing.
Right.
We don't have a good body of empirical research on fan psychology. There's a little, but it's very limited. And there have been some people who've approached me to do interviews specifically about fan psychology, and I always turn them down. Much as I would love to stick up for the fans, I'd just be speculating. Right. With a fictional character, I could speculate, and they can't sue me.
Right.
And it's. I get to talk about the real psychology. I get to speculate about what goes on in this person's private moments, which is not fair with a living human being.
That's true.
Because, I mean, you are talking about the broad topic of why she's popular. And it is a good question. It is something to wonder about. It's like we are speculating, what is it about Harley that appeals to people? And for many of them, it's the cool design. And depending on which design we're talking about, for some it's the fun that she brings to the story she's in, and then some it's how she's empowered herself in the original version of her origin, and the Paul Dini version, Mad Love, which appeared in publication before it appeared on Batman the Animated Series. And it's a very strong story. And while she is being manipulated by the Joker, she is being fooled by the Joker, she is still the one who decides, I shall become a supervillain. I shall, steal stuff from the costume shop, dress myself up, and break the Joker out. The New 52 version of the origin, they take away her agency in her own origin.
Which is a bummer to me. I mean, that's personally a bummer. Yeah.
And it looks like Suicide Squad has gone with that version of the origin where the Joker just tosses her in a vat of acid to force her to change. And that takes away from one of the things that, from what I hear, is part of what makes her so popular is her agency in her own story. In Mad Love, at the end, the present day part, Batman taunts the Joker with how she came closer to beating him than the Joker ever did.
Yeah. No, the Harley's vulnerability in my opinion, in the first, 10 years of her existence, or I'd have to go down, but she had fallen for the Joker. So the only thing that was holding her back was her sort of codependent relationship on him. But other than that, I mean, and that's fascinating news. I mean, Mad Love went into a lot of that and everything. But yeah, as a character, as an empowered character, or whatever, she's very fascinating. And in current continuity, as I understand it, she's kind of left the Joker behind and said, I've outgrown you, or I'm done with this abusive relationship or whatever. So,
that's usually how she's appeared in comics.
Right.
Even from when she first appears in comics, it's usually that the Joker is more a part of her past, because in terms of ongoing stories, she's more interesting as the person who is not presently with the Joker, either the person who views him as an ex, or the one who kind of misses him, or both.
Right.
And while it's like, that doesn't sound very empowering, because that's a horrible relationship, we do know plenty of people make poor choices in relationships and are attracted to the wrong person,
this is true,
even though they don't want to be. And we see an interesting time. There was a comic book series, Gotham City Sirens, with her, Catwoman, and Poison Ivy as roommates. Which,
oh my goodness.
But it was a good series.
I bet it was. I love when she's with Poison Ivy. I think that's a great dynamic.
And I know recently they've put it in the comics that there is something sexual to their relationship, which seems inevitable when guys are writing stories about women being buddies, and so I have mixed feelings on that. It's like I there's nothing wrong with them having that relationship, but
they don't absolutely have to. right?
No,
to tell
and
a good
doing it,
story.
and it was within a month of when they said, Catwoman is bisexual too, and so all your women have to be bisexual apparently,
right?
And so not absolutely.
No, I hear you. Yeah,
it's bisexual characters, but we're doing it repeatedly as this trope that the male writers are inflicting into the story. It's frustrating, but I think there was such strength of friendship with Harley and Ivy. They brought out interesting things with each other. Harley, of course, Harley's a bit of a social chameleon. She adapts to whoever she's around. When she's with heroes, she's more heroic. When she's with villains, she's more villainous. When she's with the Joker, she's more murderous. When she's hanging out with Ivy, her smarts come out,
right?
Her wit, and Ivy is humanized. Ivy remembers her own human side more when she's hanging out with Harley.
I love their dynamic when they're together. I think that's one of the, I've always been attracted to the stories that just have them hanging out and showing that side of Harley and Poison Ivy. There's anyway, we could do a whole show on this. I gotta move us on, but I figured there'd be a lot there with Harley Quinn. She's really become a fascinating character. So, and speaking of the Murderverse, I guess you saw where Warner Brothers is shaking up how the executives are approaching their movies. Yeah. So I hope that results in some changes, because I got to be honest. I mean, I'll watch them. They're decent action flicks, and I like to see my favorite heroes on movies, but I'm not a fan of the dark and grim Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. I'm not a fan of the tone. So, you may be, I don't know, but I'd like to see something done a little bit different. I don't know if Zack Snyder's still going to be attached, but they're shaking up how they're approaching their movies, because they're seeing that it's not catching on as well as they wanted it to, and they see, I think Batman versus Superman has made around 800 million, and to them that's good. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the hit out of the park that they wanted. So
no, for the stability of Warner itself, they needed it to make $1 billion like an Avengers movie, and it did not. Yeah,
I even said, we talked about the show or the movie here on the show, and I said it's going to have a great opening weekend or maybe the first week because of the pent up demand, but it's not going to have legs, and that was my prediction. Now I'll watch it on DVD because I'm a comic nerd, but the main, you still have to bring in the mainstream, which is what the Marvel movies are doing. There's people who could care less about comic books that love the Marvel movies. So
lesson number one, when you're telling a story with existing characters that have been very successful, respect the history. Find what has worked for them over the years. People going, it's like Superman doesn't work in this day and age. Really? Then how has Superman stayed in print every single month since 1939? One of only 3 characters, to have made it every single month in the 50s. Smallville lasted for 10 years. And it was not perfect, but it did show there was definitely a strong interest in Boy Scout Superman.
Yeah, I know. I worked with a guy who was like heavy metal, gothic, blah, and he loved Smallville. He loved the Superman character, which surprised me. There's something about Superman that people love. So, So anyway, I hope that they find their footing, because a series of great DC movies and Justice League movies would make me very happy. I do not want to see them fail. I'm going to wrap us up super quick on these last 3 news items, and we'll hit a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about superhero psychology with Dr. Travis Langley here. But there's a new Star Trek Beyond trailer out, just hit last day or two. In my opinion, it's better than the Beastie Boys when they did. But everyone's got different taste. So that's out. That's linked on the show notes. And then the Star Trek, the new television series they're launching, and I think January 2017, they did a teaser. That's linked, and it just shows the music and the logo, what the logo is going to be and all that. But they're kind of teasing people for this new thing. Now, you've done a Star Trek book, right, Travis?
Yes, it will come out later this year. It was going to come out this summer, but we've got so many things going on. It'll come out in the fall, which is okay by me, because people seem to be more curious about the upcoming TV series, which starts in January.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, I don't have a problem with the J.J. Trek movies, but I prefer the Prime universe. So I'm hoping that we get more of that. But I can watch the J.J. movies and enjoy them. But
especially the first one.
Yeah, the first one was great. Into Darkness had decent moments. I'm hoping that Beyond is great. I'm hoping that Beastie Boys trailer was just an anomaly of telling us what the tone of that movie was going to be. Okay, and then finally, for a little bit of video game news, and then we'll cut to a break after this. Nintendo is branching out what its business purpose is. In addition to video games, they're looking at getting into restaurants and software and medical devices. So I guess instead of Planet Hollywood or Hard Rock Cafe, we may be going to the Planet Nintendo one of these days. I don't know. Do you keep up with video game stuff at all, Travis?
I don't keep up with it as much as I do with some of these other things. I love the idea of a Nintendo themed restaurant.
Yeah, I think it would.
You see the Mario meal with plenty of mushrooms, obviously.
Oh yeah. Well, I see like a little mushroom, like a plastic mushroom on the table that you can press buttons on to order stuff or to bring waitresses in or something. I don't know. But anyway, all right. Well, I got to take us to a break. I appreciate your thoughts on all those news items. When we get back, we're going to be talking about the actual psychology of superhero and pop culture icons with Dr. Travis Langley here on Shane Plays Radio.
Hold on to your butts.
June 11th to 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock, the River City Comic Expo is Arkansas's largest comic, toy, game, cosplay convention and now features the Little Rock Picture Show. Guests for 2016 include Neil Adams, Mike Zeck, James Aubert, Larry Hama, Michael Golden, and Arkansas's own Mitch and Elizabeth Brettweiser, John Lucas, and Dusty Higgins. You'll find booth after booth with artists and dealers representing comics, toys, books, movies, games, and so much more. So come on out to the River City Comic Expo, June 11th and 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock. RiverCityComicExpo.com.
Fairly alarmed here.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net.
The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit Megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
Megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.
Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. We're joined by Dr. Travis Langley, the Superherologist. And what he does is he's combined his love of psychology and his love of superheroes and pop culture icons and he either writes or edits, depending on the book, these fascinating looks at psychology through the eyes, if you will, of these pop culture icons like Batman and Captain America and Iron Man, Doctor Who, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, The Living Dead, Star Wars. It's really fascinating. I'm gonna read a quick bio for him, and then we'll get into talking a little bit more about the actual psychology. This stuff fascinates me. I don't know if I shared with you, Travis, but my main degree is actually in social psychology. So this, I love this stuff. So
where from?
Park University out of Missouri. So I was in the Air Force, and I did my, they had satellite branches on the Air Force Base. So that's where I got mine through. But now you got yours from Hendrix or Henderson?
My bachelor's is at Hendrix, and my graduate degrees are from Tulane and New Orleans.
Very cool.
So the bachelor's here in Arkansas.
Very cool. Yeah. And what's funny is you've also got one of your peers up there is Dr. Randy Duncan, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I've had him on the show, and he teaches comedy. What is going on up around there that you got all these cool professors teaching all this cool stuff in Arkadelphia, man? That's pretty cool, man.
Well, Randy really did lead to a lot of it.
Did he?
I got involved in the conventions because Randy brought up some things here. Well, Randy has a colleague, Matt Smith, in Ohio, who every year does this research project with students at Comic-Con. And one of my sons was going to participate in that in 2007, going to Comic-Con to be part of this panel presentation. I was like, well, I want to see that. So that's why I went to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time. And I got there. I met comic scholars there, and I got to this environment that celebrates interests that might make people feel ostracized elsewhere in their lives. And I knew I need to be part of this. And it was the same summer I taught a psychology and literature course using literature to teach real psychology, and I'd already seen the power of it, and it just all came together that summer. So Randy led to that, and then Randy got others in other departments interested, three of them together, writing a book about nonfiction comics, and we've grown to we've added a comics studies minor
nice.
Within the last year. We just had our first students graduate with that minor. And so it really does, go back to having this one person who paved the way for the rest of us. I mean, I'd always been, a big nerd, but before 2007, the nerdy side of my life and the professor side of my life were two different things.
Yeah, and then they smashed together. That was your origin story.
That's it.
Yeah, it smashed together in a radioactive explosion, and what emerged was the Superherologist. I can see it as a Stan Lee and Jack Kirby comic book cover. I can see it right now. Well, let me tell people a little bit more about what you do, and then we'll get into some of what you're doing. Travis Langley, PhD, has authored the acclaimed book Batman and Psychology: A Dark and Stormy Night. And by the way, this is from his Amazon page. Go on Amazon and search for Travis Langley. You can find all this. He's the editor and lead writer for Sterling Publishing's series on psychology and popular culture, including The Walking Dead psychology, Star Wars psychology, Game of Thrones psychology, Doctor Who psychology. I love the subtitle on that one, A Madman with a Box. Captain America versus Iron Man, Freedom, Security, and Psychology, and I guess that's the most recent one, among others. You got a Star Trek one coming out, you mentioned. He's a psychology professor who teaches on the psychology of crime, mental illness, social behavior, and media at Henderson State University. You received your bachelor's from Hendrix College and your doctorate in psychology from Tulane University. Travis has also been a child abuse investigator, courtroom expert, I love this, undefeated champion on the Wheel of Fortune, as if everything else isn't enough. He appears on Expert Interviewee. He appears as an expert interview in several documentaries, including Legends of the Night, Comic Book Literacy, Necessary Evil, Supervillains of DC Comics. You've been New York Times, CNN, MTV, and many others. And you've got 100,000 plus Twitter followers. So like I said, whatever vitamins, that scene from... when Harry Met Sally, when she's like, I'll have whatever vitamins you're taking, man, I want some of those. So you're out there doing a lot.
Diet Mountain Dew.
Diet Mountain Dew is the key. All right. So tell us, we spent a lot of time on the news segment, which was fun because I loved your perspective on getting all that. That's
our hour.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, man, it was nice talking to you. No, but so I guess, unless you want to talk about something else, why don't we talk a little bit about your most recent book, which is the Captain America versus Iron Man, since it's so relevant to the movie that's out right now, and also, a major Marvel event a few years ago, and now they're doing Civil War II, which I think is Captain Marvel versus Iron Man. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd wanted to do this a while back because the Marvel Civil War storyline was very powerful a decade ago. And in fact, that very first San Diego Comic-Con I went to, wound up doing a presentation as part of the scholarly conference, the Comics Arts Conference, the scholarly conference within the convention. And I was trying to say, what should I talk about? And Randy Duncan had said, well, why don't you talk about Civil War? I was like, I don't have anything I want to say about Civil War. Oh, yes, I do. I know what I want to say about Civil War. And
okay.
There's a psychologist, Eric Fromm, who he's not one of the most famous, but he's certainly more famous than most of the psychologists around.
Right.
But
I mean, I've heard his name. Yeah.
He has a place in the history, especially personality psychology.
Now, this is FROMME, right? Is that who I'm thinking of?
FROMM.
Okay, FROMM. Okay.
And he was trying to make sense of why the German people had given up so many of their freedoms when they were afraid after the Great Depression, and it led to the Nazis' rise to power. And he and his family had to flee from that. And he was trying to understand this, and he decided that the most basic human dilemma is the conflict between freedom and security. These things we want both. You want it from when you're a toddler. You want to be free. You want to do things yourself, but you also want safety and security. And they can support each other and they can conflict. And I saw this in that conflict between the superheroes and the Civil War storyline as led by Captain America and Iron Man. But you can also view that whole storyline as a fight between these two guys, and everybody else is dragged into it.
Yeah, it definitely works on both levels.
It works on both levels. I mean, you can take them out of the story and have a story, but it's very personal with them. Captain America, who's arguing for the freedom. You can go, it's like, why is the guy who's dressed as the flag the one who's opposing, the government restrictions? Right. It's like, well, he's going back to the rebels who founded the country in the first place, and they were opposing authority. They wanted their liberties, and he wanted the superheroes to have their individual liberties. Whether you look at the comic books or the films, in the films, you've seen Hydra infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. and the government. Mm-hmm. Why in the world would you trust, governments to regulate you? Then there's Tony Stark, who, of course, he comes in as somebody who's building weapons for national security.
Right.
And he's learned a few hard lessons in his life about the need to make people safer. And he's made some very big mistakes, especially in the films where, hey, there's this Ultron.
Yeah, Ultron was major in the film. Yeah. That was a big boo-boo, Tony. So,
although, whoever creates AI, they can't, when it's truly AI, they can't predict where that's going to go.
No, they won't. In fact, Stephen Hawking and others are starting to really raise the alarm on that. Like not a bunch. Yeah.
Slow down. Come on.
Yeah. Guys.
In the comics, when Ultron becomes sentient, he decides in about a second and a half, the human race must be wiped out.
Right. He comes to what is the logical conclusion for an AI if you're evaluating things purely, for an AI. I mean, there's other factors than what he factored in. But I'll tell you one thing they kind of touched on in the movie, but they went much more into in the comics, where Tony was, and I like Tony and I like Cap. I like them both as characters. Now, in the Civil War in the comics and in the Civil War in the movies, I was firmly on Cap's side. And I'd hope in real life if it ever came down to that, because I saw your blog post where you're like, would people really be on his side? I hope I would be. But one thing that they didn't go into as much in the movie is Tony is a futurist. Mm-hmm. He can look in the future and make very, very strong and usually accurate predictions about what's going to happen.
Right.
So he was, and I think they had a throwaway line in the movie where Ant-Man was like, "Oh, Stark the futurist," but that was really the angle that Tony's coming from. Like, I really think bad stuff's going to happen if we don't do this.
He worries about. He's been building for the future all along. He worries about the future. And then there's Captain America, who has these values from the past that plenty of people want to reconnect with. This issue of, it's like, why are these guys fighting? Well, it's like, why do we have so many superheroes in the 21st century? It's not just about CGI. In this day and age, as we're getting alienated from nature, that was also something Fromm talked about, as we're getting lost in our phones, and we're getting this 24/7 communication on not just the news but the internet, and we're feeling this disconnect. I don't think it's a coincidence that the majority of superhero movies have boomed in the 21st century. We're also in the post 9/11 world, where concerns about terrorism, these people pop up in these stories repeatedly. We want these heroes to fight terrorists more than we want them to fight, your local bank robber.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I've grown older, because I cut my teeth on comics from way back, and I'm in my early 40s now. As I've grown older, I've come to grapple more and more with how ridiculous it is that some of these superheroes, they spend all their time just maintaining the status quo, like stopping a bank robber. Right. So as a kid, I loved it, and there's still certain times I like to see it for nostalgia, but it does, as you get older and start thinking on a different level, I'll tell you I'm going to have to, usually I don't have breaks this close together, but we took our first break a little late, and take that. We're going to come back. We'll have about another 10 minutes to wrap up the show. My producer, GL, told me that he's fascinated by this, Travis, and he actually wrote a paper, something along these lines in school. So GL, I want you over the break to think of a question to ask Travis. All right. Can you do that? All right. He's nodding. All right. I'm going to throw some love to a sponsor. We'll hit a break. When we come back, we'll have more with the superherologist in the psychology of superheroes, Dr. Travis Langley. Some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer. Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock. They've got plenty of space. They have events every day. They do tournaments all the time. And remember that I'll be working with them at the River City Comic Expo to, we're going to have role-playing games, organized role-playing games for the first time ever at the RCCE. And her herself, Nichelle Nichols, is going to be at the RCCE this year. So if you hadn't heard that, for all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. First-time customers mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Hey, GL, don't take us to a break just yet. Tell them Shane Plays sent you. Travis, are you going to be at the RCCE this year by any chance?
I will be there, yes.
Yeah, cool. Maybe we'll get a chance to meet in person. Okay, cool. All right, GL, take us to a break.
Hold on to your butts.
June 11th to 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock, the River City Comic Expo is Arkansas's largest comic, toy, game, cosplay convention and now features the Little Rock Picture Show. Guests for 2016 include Neil Adams, Mike Zeck, James Aubert, Larry Hama, Michael Golden, and Arkansas's own Mitch and Elizabeth Brettreiser, John Lucas, and Dusty Higgins. You'll find booth after booth with artists and dealers representing comics, toys, books, movies, games, and so much more. So come on out to the River City Comic Expo, June 11th and 12th at the State House Convention Center in Little Rock. RiverCityComicExpo.com.
Fairly alarmed here.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net.
The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
Megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Troll Lord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.
Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. Remember, this is live talk radio, so if you have a question or comment for my guest, Superherologist Dr. Travis Langley, you can call it 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. Or you can tweet me at Shane Plays. GL, before the break, producer GL, he said that he really loved this topic and that he actually wrote a paper somewhat along these lines in one of his college classes. So GL, did you come up with a question for Travis?
Yeah, I was wondering, what would you say is the foundations for comics being written now? Because when I did my paper, it was on why, they created Superman and it being for the troops and during war times and stuff like that. And kind of Batman was created to kind of throw off the goody guy type image. So my question is, what would you say is the foundation now? Is it just to be popular, or do you think it's still some of those roots in, writing comics now?
Well, they were first created right before the war. I mean, there was the big boom in the heroes who were created before the war. People had a growing sense of heading toward war, but it wasn't going to the troops yet. When they were first created, it was a time when people had come out of Prohibition, and a time when the gangsters had become powerful and it didn't seem like the authorities could do anything, and people were looking at this world and wanting somebody to step up and do the right thing, even if it required working around those authorities. So they wanted these rebel heroes. They'd become big in the pulp stories, and then they moved into comics, starting with Superman. And we've always wanted fantastic heroes. I mean, admittedly, there's a point in the 50s where the number of the superheroes was dwindling until it got to be just 3. But then they had the boom. They vary in their popularity, but we've always wanted fantastic heroes. For our ancient mythology, Robin Hood, all along the way, people have always wanted somebody who's larger than life. They've always wondered, what if? And sometimes what if is impossible. What if somebody had the power to fly? But, when you're a small child, everything you haven't done yet is a what if. And that is part of what is in there and just rooted in people. And you see fantastic stories filling the fiction right now. Television is one fantastic scenario after another. This day and age where life is complicated and people, they may not feel as much hope, as it seems to be a cynical age, but they're hoping for hope. That's actually something I get into in my afterword in The Walking Dead Psychology.
Oh, okay.
Is how they hope for hope. You can reach, but there was a point where not this season that just ended, but the previous one, before they get to Alexandria, when the characters are beaten down and they're walking along, and Maggie's asking, where are we going? And she's reached the point of not knowing what to look forward to.
Yeah, it's like, what are we?
For.
Yeah, what are we doing? Why are we even existing?
So she didn't have hope. She was wondering, what reason do I have for hope? So in its own way, she was hoping for hope. And in this stage age, we are hoping for hope. We are hoping for reasons to feel optimistic, even when we don't feel optimistic. And that in and of itself is not giving up. Hope is not the same as optimism. Optimism is more of an expectation that things will go well. And it's hard to be optimistic when you're looking at this world in the news inundating us, making it sound like we're far more likely to be victims of everything than we really are. Plenty of research shows people watch the news more, overestimate their likelihood of being victims. Moral of that story, news bad. But
yeah. Yeah, I think that
we still want heroes. We still want somebody to step up and do the right thing.
Right. Well, and that's an interesting way because every time has a zeitgeist or zeitgeist, however you say that. Always
Zeitgeist.
Yeah. It all, and so the characters kind of represent that at the time, the spirit of the times. I'll tell you something I'm seeing a trend right now is more, and Marvel's doing this. I don't know if I can think of anybody in DC, any characters in DC, but Marvel has taken two major characters, and there's now two versions of the character running around at the same time with the same name. I see that. So instead of, because there's always been a little bit of, we're going to take an existing character and replace them with a new character or a new person under the costume, if you will. Well, now with Captain America and with Spider-Man, you've got two Captain Americas and two Spider-Men running around right now that are totally different people under the costume. I mean, have you thought about that any? What that may reflect?
It's they like the strength of the name is part of it. They like the branding in and of itself. People like Sam Wilson as a Captain America. He's so much more popular and attention getting than as the Falcon.
Right.
But you do have to wonder, okay, within this fictional world, where it's like, okay, we've got 5, 6 Green Lanterns making the news, what do people call them?
Yeah.
Okay, they know Guy Gardner's name, but they don't know all these other guys. And the people on the news sure aren't going to say the African-American Green Lantern.
Right.
So what do they call them? Likewise with, these multiple Captain Americas, they do know their identities. Their identities are publicly known with them, but not Spider-Man.
Right.
Well, so Spider-Man and the local kid Spider-Man.
Yeah, the other Spider-Man. Yeah, and it was interesting in one of the newer Spider-Man books that I think Brian Michael Bendis does an amazing. I've always loved Brian Michael Bendis' stuff, but he had like Miles Morales was fighting somebody and his costume got torn, and it showed some of his skin, and a YouTuber went, "It's official, the new Spider-Man is a person of color," and Miles was actually like, his buddy was like, "Man, that's great." And Miles was like, "I don't know if that's how I want to be. I just want to be Spider-Man," So yeah. I thought that was an interesting, because it's the elephant in the room in some ways, right? Mm-hmm. I'm glad that Brian Michael Bendis just went ahead and addressed it or whatever. So, but yeah, it feels to me kind of like Marvel's trying to, like DC's trying to have its cake and eat it too with Rebirth. I think Marvel's kind of starting to, with this all new, all different, more diverse cast of characters. I think they're trying to have their cake and eat a little bit too, right? Oh no. We didn't really replace Captain America. Well, yeah, you did, because Sam Wilson's Captain America, but no, Steve Rogers is Captain America too. And when you keep doing that, I guess they're trying to disassociate the name and the costume from the person. But to me, the character becomes less interesting when they're disassociated with a core person under the mask. So I don't know. I don't have a final finish line to take that thought across, but that's just how I'm initially responding to it. So yeah, we've got about a minute left here and then we got to drop. I wanted to thank you for being on. I know you're super busy. I'd love to have you back on sometime if you got some free time and want to promote one of your books or talk about Rebirth or whatever. Hope we get to run into your River City Comic Expo. Do you have like 20 seconds or something you'd like to promote your book or take final thoughts or something?
I have books, buy them.
Yeah, he has books, buy them. Go to Amazon.com and type in Travis Langley. I tell you, out of all of your books, I think I want to read the Captain America, Iron Man, the Batman, those two. I mean, Batman, you can make your whole career talking about that psychology, right? And then
I've been talking about it for 4 years, which is really nice. The book's been out for 4 years. It still does well every single week, and it's gratifying, not just because, hey, books are getting sold, because people respond to the same things that are interesting to me. And there are times when I was a little kid, I didn't have anybody to talk to.
Yeah, no, it's good to be a geek right now. It's totally different than growing up. Hey, I got to wrap us. Catch us next week on Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio.